Hey guys, WeQuilt Studio here, and we are going to convert Studio Next ESM files to Studio Regular ESM files. Because if you're a Studio Regular user and you just like working in Studio Regular, you'll find that any ESM that you've made in Studio Next cannot directly be used in Studio Regular. But there is a workaround, and we're going to cover that today. So the first thing you want to do, I'm going to take you through the whole process because as you know, I have custom ESMs for sale on my website, and it's like a bundle. There's a lot of them in there, and some of them are created in Studio Regular from a long time ago, but the more recent ones were created in Studio Next, and you won't be able to use them in Studio Regular unless you do this workaround. So that's what I'm going to show you now. So the first thing we want to do is we want to go to Studio Next and assign one of those custom ESMs, those newer ones, to our object, to our outline object. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm in Editor right now, and I'm going to come up here to Studio Next, click. Okay, so here we are in Studio Next. And here are the instructions. So if you just want to take a screenshot of that, and we'll go through the instructions. So in Studio Next, you'll want to click Gadgets, Fragment Editors. So here we are in Studio Next, and I'm just going to hit this button first to bring it one-to-one. So now my hoop is closer, and we're going to go to Gadgets, Fragment Editors. So this is equivalent to User Editors in Studio Regular. Okay, and open your custom ESM file in the square field number 1. So here is square field number 1, and it is selected by default. So with it selected, we're going to open our custom ESM. So the 3 dots, open sample. And you'll want to go to the folder where all your custom ESMs are. And mine are in C, Users, WeQuilt, Embird ESM files, ESM outlines, favorite outlines. So for me, it's just easier to have all my custom ESMs in this path. Like I go right to C, Users, WeQuilt, and then there's my ESM files. So your folder you may just want to make a folder that says ESM files in your user account, because then it's quicker to get to, especially when you're in Studio Regular. Because Studio Regular always defaults to Embird's ESM folder, so then you have to always navigate to your ESM folder. So that's why I started putting them in my own folder that was right from C Users, and then whatever your user account is, say it's Mary or Joe or something. And then if you bought my bundle, I would put my bundle in your Embird ESM files folder. So create an Embird ESM files folder underneath your user account. So you'll see that better when we get into Studio Regular. But in Studio Next, it always opens to the last thing you opened. So mine already is open to my favorite outlines folder. And it looks like I have them alphabetized. I have them sorted by name. So 3 dots, sort by name. And I have it descending because a lot of times I choose date instead of name, but I'll leave it at name. And I know which ones were created in Studio Next. I kind of have an idea, and I could not totally don't remember, but I know wood grain 1, and all these wood grains were made in Studio Next. So this might be in the bundle. I'm pretty sure it is. So I'll click wood grain 1, and it shows up here, and it also shows over here. And I'm going to open up wood grain small. So there it is up there, and then just click open, and then you'll see it'll be right here, and it also shows up right there. And so slot number 1 is filled, and then just click done. So it's in our gadget fragment editors. Let's go to the instructions. So click Fragment Editors, open your custom ESM file in the square field 1. We did that. We click Done. Now create an outline object, then click Params. So I'll just create an outline object here. You could also create it by going to Text, Font Engine Text, and create a font with outline added to it, and then just delete the satin or whatever and use the outline. And there's so many ways you can create outlines, but this is the easiest way to create an outline. So once I clicked that, I'll click once, and I'll just click again, and you could see mine are set to the cubic Bezier curve instead of the older simple quadratic or even straight line. I just have it set to that. So there's my outline, and I'll just click enter. Okay, and then the directions say to go right into params. You'll click here. It says sample is your outline mode as opposed to these other types of outlines. So sample, and then assign that custom ESM. So drag this up, and there it is there. And it looks like my max is 10. I think I might have saved this with the wrong params. Let me hit apply and see what it looks like. Oh, I guess it looks okay for this size object, 3D. That's fine. So my width is 4. Sometimes you want to change these, in which case you probably, if you don't like them and you use the same params over and over, you might want to go back to gadget editors and change the params there and then resave the file. But that looks okay, and I'll just click done. And let's go back to the instructions. So create an outline object, which we did, click params, choose that custom ESM as your pattern, then click apply and done. And that's what I did. And now it says to click design, save in regular studio compatible format, and name your design with an SR at the end. So say this is the name of your design, put an SR for Studio Regular at the end, because we're saving it in regular studio compatible format. So I'll click design, save in regular studio compatible format, and I have a folder called ESM conversions that I made. And if you don't know how to make a folder, say I was in ESM outlines, and here it is here, and here's the folders that are in there. Say I wanted to add a folder called, I don't know, ESM conversions favorites. I would click on ESM outlines, So click on it up here, not here, because that just takes you above to the previous folder. But click on it here, left click, and then add, left click, and then click on new folder, left click, and then rename, left click. And then, what did I say? ESM conversions faves. You know, say you wanted that, and hit enter. And so now when you look at ESM outlines, you'll see ESM conversion faves and then ESM conversions. I'm not going to use this one. So then if I want to delete this, I just left click on it up here and hit delete folder. Confirm, yes. And so now it's gone. But like I was saying, I started using this as my folder. If you can't find this path, you know, this C path, just hit this and then you'll navigate to it. So I'll just show you C, and then I'll go down to users. So you're just clicking once on users. WeQuilt is my account, and then this is where I created Embird ESM files, ESM outlines, and here's my favorites. So that's where I keep all of my custom ESMs in this folder. But I'm actually saving this design as a regular Embird outline format, and I decided I want to save it in ESM outlines folder under ESM conversions. I'm going to left click and rename it ESM Studio Regular EOF conversions. Just so that I'm really clear what I'm saving here, I'm actually saving my EOF files, my Studio Regular EOF files, in this folder. Okay, and then just hit enter. And so now ESM Studio Regular EOF conversions. And you'll see that I have two already saved in here. And however, I thought that this one, I renamed it to this, so I'm not sure. I'll just leave it there for now. But I'm going to call this one Wood Grain Small, but I'll call it, I'll actually put the word conversion and then Studio Regular like I did there. Conversion Studio Regular. I think in my notes I put down save in regular Studio compatible format, but name it with an SR at the end. But I'm actually putting the word convert in there just so I know this is like a file, an EOF file used for converting my ESMs. So I also added this sentence, it will be an EOF file suitable for Studio Regular. So let me save that doc. So now you'd have a different screenshot here. Sorry about that. And so wood grain small, convert Studio Regular. Okay, so that's my EOF file in regular Embird outline format. So we'll click Save. Okay, and now we're going to go to Studio Regular and open that EOF file that contains this wood grain small in its params. That's the trick. So we'll go to Studio Regular, and we'll get there from going into Editor. So in Editor, Studio Regular is right up here next to Studio Next. So here's Studio Regular, click. we'll go open that file. We can either click open here or design open. And I've already been in this folder, so here it is, the ESM. If I navigate up, you'll see there's my ESM outlines folder, ESM, Embird ESM files, and that's right in my C. So there's my Lisa WeQuilt file, and there's my Embird ESM files. So, and it was in ESM outline, so I'll double click that. And it was in ESM Studio Regular EOF conversions. I'll double click that. And it was wood grain small. I'm really not using this one up here because, like I said, I think I renamed it or something. I'm just going to delete it in this window here. I'm going to hit my delete button. So I'll just have these two. That looks better. So we wanted wood grain small, and we'll click open, and here it is, and we click on it and hit Control 1. That brings it into view. We'll just go into 3D, and there it is. So it looks exactly the same, and we'll go back to the instructions. So in Studio Regular, open the, oh, here I didn't put in the new way I'm naming it. Sorry about that. Open that EOF file that has Converge SR at the end of it. Then we go to Parameters, User Editors, and then the outlines for the user editors. Or we can get there from Objects, User Editors, and go to the outlines for that. Either way, you can get to your user editors. So most people actually, what I think, would go to it from params, so that you're just, you know, working on this particular object. So most people will go to params and then click the drop down arrow, user editors. But like the directions say, let me hit OK, you can also go to objects, user editors. So either way, so I'll just go the way that I'm used to. I'll go into params, and then you can see it's already in there. There it is. And then go to this drop down arrow, user editors. Make sure you're in this outline, or I think Embird calls them samples, but click that, and there it is there. And the only thing we have to do is resave it here, but I think we should put an SR after it, because this is the wood grain small from Studio Regular. So you'll have two wood grain smalls now. One is just one you can open in Studio Next, and one you can open in Studio Regular. So I'll put SR at the end, and then we're going to click Save up here. So that's something that I tend to forget a lot. I rename it and then I just hit OK. Well, I have to save it in that Custom Esm folder. And so this is where you have to designate between the two folders. The one that contains the EOF file that we just have here, and then the ones that contain your ESM files. So those are two different folders. So let's save this ESM by clicking Save. So this has navigated to Patterns, which is under, if I use this drop down, Patterns is in C, Program Files, Embird 64, ED Studio Patterns. We don't want to save it there because this gets erased every time you update to a new version. So we want to save this ESM in our ESM folder. And remember, that was in WeQuilt. But I'm going to just go up a level so I can take you. I'm going to go up one level, up a level. I'm going to keep going up. Okay, now I'm in C, and you can get to C so many different ways, either quick access or so on, but I just did it by going up a level. So now I'm in my C drive, and my ESMs are in users, so C users, and I'm just going to click open because sometimes I double click wrong. WeQuilt, open, and Embird ESM files. Looks like I created another folder here for some reason. Embird ESM files and ESM outlines, and then favorite outlines. That's where I save all my ESMs, you could see. And if you look up one level, here's my folder ESM Studio Regular EOF conversions. Those are my EOF files, like this chain that I just, or this wood grain that I just saved. That's just for the EOFs. We now are saving our ESM, so mine are in favorites. I'll just double click. And so here's all my ESMs, and you can see down here I have wood grain small in here, but that's the one that Studio Next is able to open. This one I renamed wood grain small SR for Studio Regular. So that's the difference between the two. So I'll click Save, and I'll click, now that it's saved, I'll click OK. So now this ESM is saved in my giant ESM folder of all my ESMs, and it has a designation after it as wood grain small SR. Now in Studio Regular you don't see the whole title, so in Studio Next you do. They kind of like make the font smaller so you see the whole title. So you might, I don't know, you might want to rename both of them with just SM or something, or wood grain, just put the GR, take off the AIN or something to make it smaller for you. But at this point then, that ESM is in here, so if I create any other outline, this wood grain small is available for me in Studio Regular, and I'll show you that. So I'll just completely close out of Studio Regular. So I'll close out. I'll say yes, save it. And took me back to editor. And I'll just go back into it just to, you know, verify that yes, we can close out and it'll still be there. So here we are in Studio Regular, and I'm going to create a different shaped outline that's one that I kind of like to create sometimes when I'm in, well, either Studio Regular or Studio Next actually, but I like to see the grid, and sometimes the grid doesn't show even though you have it in preferences that you want it to show. So let's go to Edit, Preferences, Grid, and let's change it to 10 mils and then apply, and then now you see it. When it's set at 2 mils, I think you just have to zoom in until you finally see it, so we'll leave it there at 10. And now, where's my 0, 0? Let's see. Let's zoom out. Okay, there's my 0, 0. So I zoomed out with my negative sign. And I'm just going to click the outline tool right here. And I'm going to check Snap to Grid. And let's see, I'll go on the 40 on the vertical and I'll click and I'll snap to grid. And I'll click and snap to the center, but this curve at the 20, I'll snap it down here. And at this point I'm just going to mimic that, so I'm going to come up here to duplicate and mirror horizontally. And actually I wanted that flipped. So I guess I'll just do it and bring it up. Oops, they're both selected. Control Z, I'll click another node, then click this, and then I'll flip it up. So there I have a nice S curve. It reminds me of the cubic Beziers in Studio Next. So that'll be my new outline, and I'll hit enter. So now let's assign this a custom ESM. So if we go into params, you'll notice if we go to the drop down, there's nothing in here because we have to put it in here, of course. So, you know, even if you scroll up, there's nothing in user defined. And so we'll go up to the drop down into user editors, into the outlines. The first slot is selected as a default. Click open. And it defaults to Embird's patterns, but my custom ESMs are saved in C, so double click, and then users, double click, WeQuilt, double, Embird ESM, double, ESM outlines, favorite outlines, double click, and you'll see a lot of blank spaces where those are the ones from Studio Next. And if we scroll all the way down, here's my wood grain small, and this is one I also converted, and see how I have an SR after it. So I'll click that and hit the check. We could go ahead and put the other one in. Let's click open. So I clicked slot number 2, just so you, in case you missed that, I click slot number 2 and then open. And then I'll put the wood grain 2. It's just a slightly different in there. And you'll notice my my width on that one is pretty wide. I don't know if that was a mistake or not. I might want to resave that with a shorter maximum length. So I noticed that before. This one, it has the max as 10. But I'm not sure. I might come back and resave this one at some point. But they're both in, and then I'll just hit OK. So now when I go to this drop down and scroll up, they're both there. We'll hit the wood grain small, and there's my params. Now you can change these params here, but the thing with Studio Regular, when you close out of this params window and come back, everything goes back to the default that I had it saved, you know, in the ESM file. Studio Next doesn't do that unless you like click on this and maybe choose something else and then come back to it. Then it goes back to the defaults. But Studio Regular, I believe, goes back to the defaults even after you close it. So if there's a certain number, you know, if there are certain numbers here in your params that you like and you use a lot, you may want to change them in your ESM file and save them as a different name, like wood grain small 2 or wood grain small short, or it's already named wood grain small. But for instance, in this one, with it being, now this says max 22.2 because that's all Studio Regular goes up to, but you can change that to 10 and then just go into your ESM file and change it to 10 there and just leave it at the same name if this is too long for you. But we would have to experiment with that. But let's go to the one that we were working with, the wood grain small. And these are the params. And we'll just click apply and see how it looks. Now I should have clicked 3D. There it is there. It looks pretty good. You can't click 3D in Studio Regular while this is open. You can in Studio Next. But so there's the 3D. And there it is. Very pretty. And let's just go and see what that long 22, if that was even correct. Let's hit apply. I mean, it's pretty large. My width is big. So I must have been using this file for like a bigger design, you know. So you may want to change this, but I'll just leave it as it is for now, and we'll go back to the wood grain small and hit apply. That's cute.